Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste and welcome to today's satsang. I heard a story the other day of some people that think they have to act a certain way or take a certain action simply because they have this bloodline, or that's what the family expects of them. You know, we all have a certain idea of causality. We all have a thought that this happened because of that, or if this happens, then this, or I am the way I am because I was born in this particular family. I was born in this particular culture or the particular religion. I was raised in this or that way. And sure, that does have a reality. It's only an infinite, small part of the picture. But then again, it's the way we tend to live life. You know, we have this view of how things are caused. The reason anything is the way it is. You take a grain of sand, for example. Conventionally, we say a grain of sand is there because the ocean waves stir up the water, bash against rocks, or rub against them at the bottom of the ocean. And then, you know, particles collide. And occasionally, little particles break off and wash up on the shore. And then you have sand. And it's all well and good. There's obviously a truthfulness to it. Then again, it hardly tells the story. To keep in that metaphor, what does it take for there to be a grain of sand? It takes an earth, and it takes colliding tectonic plates, currents, water, wind, even exploding stars to make little hurling rocks like Earth go into space, and huge suns for them to orbit around and be warm enough to create life. You see, all those things depend on other things to exist. It's not a standalone thing. it would be a huge regress to connect all the dots, but basically without an entire cosmos, there would be not a single grain of sand, right? So our conventional idea, our thought that this causes that, is in most cases rather silly. Actually, the cause of any event is every other thing that has ever happened throughout all space and time. And some of the effects are so subtle, so slight, that one could not even possibly measure them or track them, know about them. And this is what this interconnectedness, this idea of oneness really means. It's not this fanciful spiritual idea. A lot of people who believe in interconnectedness usually think of it with certain narrow confines, simply because they fail to get the immensity of interconnectedness, of existence. You know, this is part of what spiritual practice is meant to help open your minds to. It doesn't actually matter beforehand, or whether you believe in it or don't believe in it. It's best to live as a living, breathing question mark, you know, until something is extraordinarily clear. You know, it also takes a cosmos to create a single human being. Literally every moment is the product, the outcome of an infinite variety of causes and effects throughout all space and time. And the moment is the outcome of innumerable, untraceable influences. And the way that everything is interconnected is unfathomable. When you really see this, it's an immense thing to take in, to understand with you, with your body and mind and spirit, and it's not just the mind. It's paired with this release of a tremendous amount of energy. And it certainly gives you another outlook. It changes the way one sees the world. It changes the way one sees oneself and each other. You know, mountains and rivers are no longer simply mountains and rivers. A mountain includes all of space and time, aeons, ages. And each thing does. And actually, look, a river or a rabbit or a deer jumping around the forest, you know. Whatever it is, it's our own idea of self and of ourselves as something separate. That's nonsense. And that idea cannot survive the realization or the seeing of real interconnectedness. And in spirituality, there's often the suggestion that we look for or come to our truer identity, a truer sense of being. maybe all of a sudden day there's a shift, and we feel that we are something more, like consciousness or awareness. We think that we're something more than just this little idea floating around in the vastness of the universe. In general, that idea is filled with feeling positive, with a positive, lovey-dovey feeling. You know, we might think, okay, that's it. I have this thing nil now. I get it. Because now I've come to an identity I prefer better, or I like better than before. Which is great, don't get me wrong. I'm not by all means discounting this. The thing is, there's more to the story than that. You know, that whole oneness idea, the oneness thing, usually is sort of filled with blame. Why did it do this to me? Or why does this happen to me? Simply because everything that ever happened in all of existence, that's on a cosmic level. You know, on a human level, even if we know it's entirely appropriate to say, you know, sorry for doing this or that to you, or I messed up, I'm sorry. The thing is that you, me, them, us, and we talk about those as if there were isolated pieces on this playfield, which they're not. We're the happening of all this oneness. And the thing is that opens an immense number of possibilities and ups the scale immediately for responsibility. Because, you know, in the end, it's as if you have this one foot in the cosmos or in eternity, and the other foot in the relative world. And in eternity, it's all connected sameness and perfect. Even with all of its absolute horror and disaster and war and struggle and strife, it's also filled with beauty. And there's something that's perfect about it. And not as a philosophical idea or statement, but as an experience of this entire being, you know. And we tend to think of the absolute as an unchanging and undying, unborn something. You could also see it as the domain of pure potentiality. At the base, at the very base of our being. You know? And it's real, it's right there. And on the other side of that absolute is that this is it showing up like this. You know? And therefore you, me, the world, everything that's happening takes on a certain cosmic value. An infinite significance. And an incredible value in each being. A theistic way of saying that is not to believe or hope or anticipate, but to actually see that everything is the face of God. What happens if you really see that? How are you going to move in a world where everything is God? Where sometimes God is clear and sometimes God is confused. You know, God has the tendency to show up in an infinite variety of ways. And then that true nature has awoken in the human domain. And mountains are mountains again, and rivers are rivers. And they're not. They're both. It's like coming full circle, you know. You're back in the ordinary life, right where you started. Of course, this time, the journey changes the experience of it. Now, the ordinary life and the face of God are the same thing. The whole idea is to be unlimited. You know, it means that you can experience yourself as an ordinary little sentient being. You can experience yourself to be the totality, and you can experience yourself to be a part of it. The beauty is that you don't only have to experience only yourself. You can experience everything at the same time. From each standpoint, from each viewpoint. And that's really the most beautiful thing of it all. That within us, that which tries to fixate. I am this opposed to that. I am not that, I am this. When there's no more this and no more that, you aren't limited anymore. And that's the freedom I'm speaking of. That's the freedom where nothing is left out. Now look at the world we're in now. Look how many theories are based upon this identification with causality. Because I was born here, I have to act this. Because I was taught that, I have to act such and so. And I was taught that because of this and this and this happening in a distant past, or this and this happened to my family, which I happened to be born in without my saying. If you realize that all these things are happening because the big causality of it all, the universe happening, life happening, and you understand the real idea of oneness, everything else becomes funny. I think that's the best way to describe it. Okay, for now, I thank you for your attention and time again. As always, be present. Until the next time. Namaskar.